Hello, everybody, and welcome to another adventure in history. I'm your host, Tired McInnes. Yeah, man, how's everybody? Moose, good to see you. Lead up to stream set in the Americas. Maybe it should be living in America. Well, that's what Apollo Creed died to, so probably not. The Chunky Horse. Yep, Tad is early. Welcome, Tad. Packed the knapsack. Said goodbye to the family. Time for adventure. DCI. Very cool. Um, are you back at home or are you still abroad? Um, I don't want to dox your location. No, it's 3 a.m. and you can't sleep. Oh, that's no good. Sorry. I know how that feels though. Um, Stream number leet. 1337. We're almost there. We've only got another 1,000 to go, right? Right? You've gone from sitting on your butt in front of your computer all day to working any chance I get. Hey, nothing wrong with that. Um, I'm also being more active. Um, I was on a stair climber today for about 30 minutes, and that's yay. What's up, Tuna? Good to see you, my friend. Hope you're having a good one. Um, yeah. You do that after midnight? um, no soliciting. So I guess I should sort of talk instead of just like randomly mumble chat that has come from other people. It's been a long week. We are on the last week of classes, and my online class ends tomorrow, and I've got finals all next week in my other 5 classes. What's up, Blake Page? Good to see you. This week I have been grading a lot. Had almost 200 papers to grade, which, you know, just knock that out in an afternoon, right? And to put all of that to shame, I'm also having to take another one of these training modules that I've had to do all year. It is the last one, and that's good. But I've sort of decided that I'm going to. How do I say this the right way? I'm practicing a significant amount of malicious compliance, where I am following the instructions as written, and then when they decide to try to say that I need more, I am making it very clear that I read the instructions and pointing out how my answer actually does follow the instructions. So yeah, this is a third-party training module thing. There's a whole company that has created this curriculum that is supposed to make people better online teachers. And everybody at my college is expected to go through this. And it has been an ordeal. Quiet quitter alert. If I don't have the time to quiet quit. I don't have the option of just sitting and doing nothing. I mean, I guess I do, but the response to sitting and doing nothing is not getting anything done and then having lots of repercussions. Well, sure. I'm sure that there are a lot of people that are still trying to adapt to the COVID world, but this is in a direct response to the big shift that happened over COVID when so much stuff moved into an online learning environment, and a lot of people really resisted that movement, whereas I had been doing that for years prior to COVID. And when I worked in IT, I had actually worked on the back end of the system that we use at my school. So I'm very savvy when it comes to how to run all of this stuff, and I know the limits that it has and the ways that I can use it effectively. And I had already been doing all of that stuff, and a lot of the things that I'm sitting through now are, hey, you should do this. And I go, I already do that? And they're like, really? How did you learn how to do that? And my response is, because it's common sense. And that seems to be a recurring situation where a lot of people just don't seem to go, hey, if I have a tool that can do this, I can use that to do this thing. And that logical leap with the capability of a tool and then the application of a tool is like somehow the theory and the practice are just like utterly divorced from each other somehow, and I don't understand that very much. Lumpy, hello. I hope that you're doing well. Cave Geek, also welcome in. Khan Academy 10 years ago revolutionized teaching. The only problem with Khan Academy is that their courses are not certifiable. If they could get themselves accredited so that their class credits would transfer, that would revolutionize learning. You experience a good amount of that as well, whereas there's like the divorce between theory and practice. He is the one, right? Muffin had a colleague who wanted the school to buy him a new desk at home to teach remote classes because it was too cluttered. Interesting. Well, I will point out that the desk that is in my office at work is about 6.5. It's an L shape, and the short end of the L is probably about 6.5 feet or about 2 meters long, and then the long end of the L that runs down the back wall is probably about 10 or 11 feet, or maybe about 3 meters long, and they have an inventory tag on it to make sure that it's not stolen. And I'm sitting here wondering how it won't even fit out of the door. I would have to bring power tools to the office and literally take this into component pieces in an attempt to even get it out into the hallway to get it out. And okay, I mean, I guess if you need to inventory the desk, it's not going to go anywhere. It's still going to be there next year, just as a heads up. But I don't know. Things, stuff, whatever. I mean, I could see them sticking something on a laptop because, they're literally portable and you can sort of tuck it under your arm and run away. But a desk that weighs probably, 300 pounds or more, it's not going to go away. I'm recording all of this to create channel. Get some really, really tan, like prison wall khaki paint and some cinder blocks, and That's the beginning. I have a window, and the window used to look out to the outside of the building, but after the round of renovations that they did to the building, my window now looks out to the under part of a stairwell around a corner. So I literally look into blackness out of my window. Um, uh, you know, hello, puppy. Do you want to come up and see me? I'm getting furiously waggled. Come here. Come on. Come on. There's a puppy. Hello. Hello, puppy. I'm so glad that you decided to come and see me on the stream. What are you doing? She got a bath yesterday. Oh, yes. The puppy got a bath. And she's now sitting right here, collecting her neck scratches. You guess you should claim this? Oh, puppy. All right. Let's see. Let me catch up with chat here. You've walked so much out of offices like I was supposed to. There you go. Yeah, just yelling into the void. You're doing okay? First meeting with therapist. Nice. Chemistry going well. Nice. First home repair issue. Ooh. You know, plumbers are among the more expensive angles that unfortunately we have to take. So the opinion is, where should you go for a holiday? Should I go to Maine to see the coast, Virginia, D.C. area and see the Smithsonian, or go to Colorado Springs and get lost in the mountains? Oh, wow. If you want my opinion, the correct answer to that is obviously D.C. And the reason is D.C. is the coolest city in the States. And that's very biased, but I'm wearing the opinion hat. So, you know, I'm a Peaky Blinder. What's up, Panfernal? Good to see you, my friend. You find that incredibly offensive because your countrymen once burned the city? So I don't have a problem with going to Maine or going to Colorado. I think both of those would be valid, but we're asking my opinion. And if we're asking my opinion, I'm going to go to where the cool stuff is. And to me, cool stuff involves museums and culture, and it doesn't necessarily involve as frequently ticks that will give you Lyme disease and being around people from Colorado. So lots of ticks that will give you Lyme disease in Maine, and lots of people from Colorado in Colorado. So there we go. I haven't been to DC in 12, 13 years, and it's really starting to itch. I want to go back. Well, anyway, there's a lot of places that I want to go, and the travel budget is highly curtailed this year, if it exists at all. And it will not be, hey, you gotta stop. It will not be long, lengthy trips anywhere, pretty much. Why not Quebec City? I've never been to Quebec City, so I wouldn't know. If I'm just being honest, I wouldn't know what to do other than hang out with Lumpy, which is not an insignificant draw. I have only been partially joking when I say that I should come visit. The issue, of course, would be, you know, how much it costs to get there and then how much it costs to stay there. And maybe you can see the Museum of the Hobby Lobby, the Museum of the Bible, right? there's actually really interesting stuff in there. The issue is that it's run by the people that own Hobby Lobby, and they are literally literally criminals. They have purchased and trafficked illegal stolen antiquities, and they have perpetuated fraudulent items as real. And that's enough of that, right? Good to see you, although briefly hast thou needs to run away. What's up, Tanker? Good to see you. I, for one, love ticks. Well, those are my narrowed down choices for where to spend the Southwest vouchers. I see. We would have to go to brunch at Chateau Frontenac and feel like fancies. Yeah. You can go visit Montreal and go to Schwartz's Deli. The best smoked brisket in the world. Now that's a steep claim right there. Throwing shade on your culture? What's throwing shade on culture? I don't know if I may have thrown some shade on British culture, but it was all done in good fun. If so, relieving. Yeah, relieving. I love how you said relieving. As if the countries of their origin have such a burden of these antiquities and they need to be relieved of these antiquities. That's great. I believe there's only one real artifact in the whole museum of the Bible, but they may have been taken away too. It's quite possible too. Now, I will admit that I do not frequently keep up with what exhibits they have there. But I would love to go back to DC, and that is absolutely a place that is always in the back of my head as somewhere to go. I've never actually been all the way up into the Northeast, so if I were to go do an outdoorsy kind of thing, I would probably go to Maine, because the zone up in that corner, let's put on the borders and we'll just go zoom in up here. If you get up to this area, there's so much stuff sort of very, very close by that's not, if you were going to fly over and rent a car, you could go see a lot of stuff that's very, very nearby that would get you a lot of experience in a short time period in a small geographic area. I would probably go do that rather than go to Colorado Springs if I had to pick between the other two. So there's that. Don't overlook St. Louis, right? St. Louis is a great city. It's my second favorite city in the States. I really want to get back to St. Louis. Alas. I might do some fundraising streams over the summer. I like all the pharmaceutical labs in Boston. Hides under rock of shame. It's okay. I've never been out into Boston proper, so I can't say very much. Can confirm you went to Boston, Portland, Maine, and Acadia National Park within like 24 hours. Yeah, there we go. Right. Been to St. Louis many times. Oh yeah, there we go. That's right, Tuna. I knew that. I forgot that you were a transplant. That's me forgetting the lore of Friends. I have only ever been golfing twice in my life, and I hated it both times. It took me until around the midway part of the second time that I played to figure out that if I wanted the ball to go in a particular direction, I needed to actually face about 45 degrees away from where I wanted the ball to go, because apparently I swing a golf club like a baseball bat. So there you go. All right. Speaking of St. Louis, let's talk about some Americas. Now, we are talking about the Americas in the 9th century, and I will go ahead and note prior to sort of getting really, really deep that tonight's probably going to be a bit of a short stream. Part of this is by design because I'm very tired, and part of this is because our sources from this period get really, really, really narrow, and a lot of cultures are going down, and a lot of other cultures are just starting up. So this is a sort of liminal century in the Americas, where we are kind of leaving some modes and entering new modes. And a lot of the stuff that's going to get its beginning during this century is going to be very important 100 years down the road or 200 years down the road. So this isn't to say that it's not interesting and there's not cool stuff going on. But it's not necessarily the height of the stuff that when we say a lot of these people are going to be the things that sort of pop into mind. So, like we're about to mention, the people over here in the eastern part of North America. So if we're looking at kind of what's going on in this region over here, the eastern part of North America is ending a period of time called the Woodlands period. And the Woodlands period was, we've talked about this multiple times on stream in the past, but very basically, it itself is a transition period where we are moving away from city life in a lot of these places and moving towards smaller groups that are kind of breaking back up and moving back around again. This is also a period of technological shift where we are seeing people leave behind the atlatl and spears and moving into bows and arrows. Last time we talked about this, I actually showed some arrow points. I guess I could have done that again, but I would have ended up showing the same sort of things twice. But I don't know if anybody gets tired of looking at cool artifacts. And we're also seeing a new shift in agriculture, especially with the famed Three Sisters, where you have several crops that you grow at the same time. You have beans and gourds and corn, and because of the types of plants that they are, there's a nitrogen exchange within the soil, and it makes everybody very happy, and you can grow a lot of food out of this. That's starting to really set in. And we're about to leave, when we get out of the 900s, we'll leave the Woodlands period, and next time we come around, leave the 800s and get into the 900s, we'll enter what's known as the Mississippian period, and that is a very different kind of concept. Now, the only place in the region that is really doing a lot of change is a place in what is in modern day Illinois. And if you've been around the stream, you've seen me talk about this place quite a bit. It's a location called Cahokia. If we look at the site here, it is a very large site with a lot of different mound structures, including this really enormous mound right here that is the largest Native American mound in the continental United States, called Monk's Mound. That is not constructed at this particular time period, but what we are seeing are some of these smaller ones that are over kind of in this region. You're starting to see some of the first mounds being built at Cahokia. The site itself is not necessarily the metropolis that it will be, again, in a couple of 100 years. At this point, it was probably still a ceremonial site, and if we kind of look at this region more along the lines of a crossroads of trade, this region broadly in this area around the confluence of these rivers here, this Mississippi River and Missouri River and all these things sort of tie in kind of in this region. You would have seen a lot of villages in this area. So while they're not living necessarily in a full-out city that has 10, 20,000 people in it, the region itself is fairly densely populated when you compare it to other areas, even 10 or 15 miles away. So there's a lot of people kind of in this zone. But that's really the only area that's acting that way. Most of the other people over here in the eastern part of the Americas are going to be still moving towards getting back involved in cities. There's a little bit of stuff that's coming down here where you get some fairly decent-sized villages, but not really what we would call full-out cities. Now, again, 120, 200 years down the road, we'll see more stuff going on. But that's what's going on over there in the eastern part. Now, down here in what we would call the southwest, this is going to be one of the places that actually does get some pretty neat stuff to look at and some fairly decent sized changes. In the southwestern area, we're going to enter a period of time that we refer to as the Pueblo I period. Now, but this is also sort of a getting people excited about stuff that isn't around yet. When I say Pueblo, a lot of people think, oh, this is it. This is where they start building all the cities, where they're all building the buildings on top of each other, and they're using adobe, and they're climbing in through the roof. There is a very small amount of that happening during the Pueblo I period. Most of that is going to be later on, about 100 years down the road. But what we do start seeing are evidences of communal living, especially evidences of communal storage facilities, where we're going to be living in areas and in buildings that are still going to be mostly huts. There's a lot of pit houses where you sort of dig out back from the ground and you build a little bit of a roof over the top of it. Those are going to be mostly what the houses look like, but you're going to start seeing stuff like this. Back when Adobe products weren't subscription-based. Right. Exactly. So this is at a place called the Lost Canyon, and you start seeing buildings like this, which would have been tucked here in the little canyon itself. This building would have probably been used for either communal storage of food or perhaps communal meeting, but it's not too terribly big. It's only... If you put people in here, you're only going to fit maybe 15 people, 20 people in here comfortably. It's not necessarily a big auditorium sort of thing. You can see there's some scrub brush around here that kind of gives you a sense of scale. So not humongously large dwelling places. Now, there are some sites that are a little bit larger, like this site here, which is at a place... called this is what's referred to as the River House, and it's in the San Juan River Valley. And you can see here that we're starting to move towards this idea of building spaces where we might actually be living together. These are rooms that are a little bit smaller. You can see here we're starting to even experiment a little bit with two-story buildings. There are some petroglyphs and rock carvings on the wall back here, but you start seeing a little bit of this stuff. Even little 9th century people. Yeah, even so. You wouldn't have wanted to live in this building with 20 people. There's not enough space for everybody to have a comfortable amount of living room. The fact that when this area was excavated, you don't see a lot of what we would consider like personal use items that were found here. You see a lot of stuff like pottery and baskets, which are pretty evident of people using this as a space for storage. The lack of personal items makes it pretty clear that this was not necessarily a dwelling place. Now, when you get over here to the River House, it is more like a house. This is a much more developed site, though. You can tell just by looking at it. But you start seeing things like this go down, and the Pueblo period is going to be a fairly decent-sized shift in culture. The period before it is referred to as the basket-making periods. There are several of those, basket-making 3, but you don't necessarily want to sit here and have to memorize all of the periods of Southwestern civilization development. I just say that because I think some people might be interested. Now, one site that does get some attention that I want to point out, mostly because it's really friggin' cool. I'll show you this, but we're not actually getting to the point where it's as big and fancy as it actually looks later on. But there's a location in what is modern day New Mexico where you start seeing quite a bit of habitation, centralized habitation, and some large scale building. Now, if I zoom in on this and show you this stuff, it's going to look really impressive for scale and size and complexity. But know that at the time period that we're talking, this would have been about 150 years to 200 years later. So places like Chaco Canyon are going to be cities in proper sense. At the time period that we're talking about in the 9th century, they're more likely to be, some of these buildings are probably going to be more likely to be used for religious purposes. Is that a city for ants? No, it's a fairly big city. You can exit Street View and we can, no. What are we doing? I said exit. We can use our handy dandy little ruler tool here. We can measure this site. Oh, come on, do the thing. There we go. This site is a 1/10 of a mile wide. How many meters? That's 161 meters across. So it's pretty good. It's 0.16 kilometers. It's a fairly decent sized site. It's definitely not a city for ants. There are a lot of other sites along Chaco Canyon that this is one of the places that I was really kind of getting excited about the potential of going to see this summer. Prior to the roof experience, Cave and I were considering going out to the west and looking at some Native American stuff. Maybe they were big ants. What's up, JMR? Good to see you. Termites. Yeah, exactly. No problem about converting units. I understand the beauty of the metric system. I like round numbers. I don't like having to keep up with stuff like 5,280 feet in my head. That's just a much. It's just too much, right? I think the only way that we'll in America ever move to a system is if we come up with a new standardized system and then make everybody else use it. I think that's probably the only way America would change to a zero-based system or a 10-based system. Oh, I mean, I know the metric system is very easy. I'm aware of what the metric system is. I was just talking about, metric stuff earlier. Freedom units, exactly. What the heck is a 1/16 of an inch? About 1.5 millimeters. Measuring people's weights in stones. See, the United States doesn't do that. That's the UK that's still talking about stones over there, right? Has a medieval feel to it. Well, it's what we get. It's what we get. You have to do math to measure things. Yeah, exactly. Wait until you start, like there's 12 inches to a foot. Like why 12? Why base 12? Are we going back to the hexagesimal system of the Sumerians? Yeah, whatever. Anyway, that's the Southwest. I forgot to mention another thing that's happening down here in the Southwest is that they are going to start introducing some cotton as a crop to grow, and the cotton, of course, is going to be used as a source of clothing. And one of the things that's going to become especially common in the southwestern area at the beginning of this period, but especially as we go on through the other Pueblo phases, Pueblo 2 and Pueblo 3. You're going to start seeing a lot of really beautiful weaving and art in cloth form, if that makes any sense. Not hexadecimal, hexagesimal. That is the word. 12 inches to a foot is a horrible medical condition, right? How many cubits to a furlong? I don't actually know the answer to that. I know that a cubit is the length from your elbow to the point of your finger, but I don't know how many cubits go to a furlong. Unreal Brian, if you know that, that'd be great. I would be happy for you to to enlighten me on that. You thought cotton had originated in India, so cotton has a lot of different types of variant versions. And the cotton that was grown mostly in the southeast of the United States during, like the cotton boom of the early 1800s was actually Mexican cotton. It wasn't Indian cotton. There's also Egyptian cotton, and India does have cotton. There's a lot of different versions of cotton, though. 1 foot is 12 inches. 1 yard is 3 feet. According to Wolfram Alpha, convert 1 cubit to furlongs. There are 4 rods per chain and 10 chains per furlong and 8 furlongs per mile. Well, there you go. A 4th grade teacher said she remembered how many feet were in a mile because her son was born on 5/2/80. Well, hey, there we go. It works if it works, right? It works if it works. But that's our discussion for North America. Now, I know that seems kind of like, oh, you didn't really talk about that much. Again, we're kind of on a liminal space here. You're older than your 4th grade teacher. I'm older than a lot of people's 4th grade teachers. Teachers in the United States are getting younger because people are burning out really fast and people aren't staying in the profession very long. Okay. Words and things and stuff. This is where my brain is losing me. Oh, let's talk about Costa Rica. All right. Now, in the modern day world, down here, if we talk about like actual countries, I know that the Central American world is a kind of a, I don't know, like a, when I talk about Central America to a lot of people, it just sort of seems like, hey, there's a lot of little countries and they're all kind of just mushed right there in the middle. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's accurate. But Costa Rica is a pretty cool place. I'd like to go there. But in this region right around in here, we're going to start seeing some pretty neat growth when it comes to cities and cultures. And this is kind of marking the expansion of culture. We've had a whole bunch of culture going on here in, can't really tell, Mesoamerica, which is Mexico and Belize and Guatemala. And we've talked about groups of people down here in Colombia, which are, big, and they're, making these really cool metal things and doing this really great stuff with gold. But here in this particular region, we haven't really talked very much, and that's okay, but it's time to sort of correct that. People complained about the conversions, but really, why would you need to know how many rods in a mile? I don't know. I don't know, Frank. That's a great question. I don't know if I have ever in my life run into a situation where I have measured a unit of distance with a rod. Next week's episode, we helicopter Shane McInnes into the Darien Gap. Hey, that'd be cool. I'd be happy to go. Central America, you mean Nebraska? Pretty much. That's Central America. I agree. There you go, Brian. There is corn growing down here, though, so there's a comparison. There's the overlap. We've made the jokes collide now. Right? Anyway, if we look at what's going on down here, there are a couple of sites that are interesting to talk about. One of them is Las Mercedes. You don't mean the archaic one. Who needs to know the feet in a mile or the meters? Oh, who needs to know the feet in a mile or the meters in a kilometer? I mean, in the modern world, it's sort of irrelevant because everything is so big and expansive now. I mean, I get what you're saying. It's a legitimate point. I will defer to my sociology degree and say that all units of measure are social constructs, and if we want to change them, we can. And if they are antique or antiquated and that we think that there are better ways to do it, we should. There we go. For a long time, there was a physical rod in Paris that defined the meter. There we go. There we go. The jokes are corny. Indeed, indeed. We all need to know for conversions. Well, you know, I only did conversion factors in the 8th grade. And I don't really ever want to do them again. The teacher that taught me how to do conversion factors in the 8th grade was very militant about them, and it made me sort of hate the concept. So, not particularly excited about that overall. Now, what is the site of Las Mercedes? Well, it's a big old site, and it had been a settlement site for hundreds of years prior to what we're talking about. And when we say settlement, though, this is somewhere between people stay here during certain times of the year, or there's a small village here, or there's a collection of villages in this region. But around this particular period of time, the people of Las Mercedes are going to begin to build mounds. Now, the reason I particularly chose to share this picture, this here is the Native American mound, and here's the guy just deciding to dig randomly into it to get all the cool stuff out of it. All right, Ann, good to see you. Hope that you have a great night as well. Thanks for dropping by. If you're going to go stream, everybody should go follow our friend Infernal, who is a game streamer, but also, I guess, broadly considered a variety streamer because sometimes there's cooking, and sometimes there's painting, and sometimes there's knitting or sewing, and other times there's, you know, killing vampires. But whatever it is, Ann's there, and Ann's delightful, so you should go give Ann a follow and hang out. Have some fun. Anyway, one of the reasons why we don't necessarily know the best amount of material about this region is because of stuff like this, where a whole bunch of people decided, hey, we should just go dig stuff up. And they did, and they didn't do it well, and they didn't necessarily document things very well, and if we're just being honest, they ruined a lot of the history. Now, we do have some things that are from Las Mercedes, but it's like these guys. These are big stone warrior kind of guys. But if you want to see these, they're in Sweden. Because, you know, that's what you do. You dig stuff up from a culture that's a long way away, and then you take it back home to Europe. Which, you know, is its rightful place, certainly. Sure. What's up, Agni? Good to see you, my friend. Hope you're having a good one. What's new? That's a great question. I don't know what's new. My last day of class for this semester is tomorrow. That's kind of cool. But it's also kind of like, oh crap, because I've got all this additional paperwork and stuff, you know. So there we go. Toxo. I'm not even going to give that a shot. Well, I guess I will. Maquette? Toxo maquette. Toxo mikut. Mikut. Interesting. What's the practice or the tradition of the mount? So that's a great question. We don't necessarily know. Some of them were clearly burial mounds because there have been some excavations much later, like in the 1960s, when people were, actually doing archaeology well, not just, I'm fun and I've got a whole bunch of money and I can afford to fly to another country and steal all their artifacts. But in the 1960s, middle 1900s, there were some efforts to actually go back to Las Mercedes and do real archaeology. And some of the mounds are burial mounds, but a lot of them were damaged pretty badly, and we can't exactly tell what they were. We think the one that got wrecked that has those that had those statues in them may have been a like a communal center where you have maybe public proclamations or some sort of I hesitate to say it's ceremonial in nature because that's the excuse for everything, but these might actually have been ceremonial. Oh, for sure. I know, but it's that one was this stuff from Las Mercedes that's across the world is it wasn't there because of just holding on to stuff. It was there because they took it. There's plenty of aspersion to be cast around for all of those. What's up, Stolak? Good to see you, my friend. Hope you're having a good one. They are similar in style. They are more closely arranged, like South American and Central American cities, though. A lot of the mounds that are in the southeast part of America or the Ohio River Valley of America were not necessarily built as a part of a civic functional thing. A lot of them are just, this is a cool place to build a mound, so we should build a mound here. A lot of the stuff that's in Central America when it comes to mounds are less randomly placed and more sort of part of a larger city plan, because like in Las Mercedes there are canals and roads, and the ways that the roads are lined up and the way that the canals come into the city and the way that the mounds are arranged, it looks like this was sort of a more organic growth of a city, because later on there are other buildings that get added around, but that's typically going to be more along the Central American world because they had more cities, right? So they've seen this kind of stuff happen before. Like if you've been to Teotihuacan, where you have the Temple of the Moon, the Temple of the Sun, and you have the Avenue of the Dead down the middle of it, and all of the buildings of the nobles and stuff are lined up along the side of it. That was clearly planned to be that way, instead of, oh, this is a cool place to build a big mound, right? Is it Las Mercedes where they found the crystal? I don't know. I saw that movie once in the theaters and groaned most of the way through it and have effectively refused to watch it since then, because I just don't want to. I'll just be real honest. I just don't want to watch that movie again. There's another site that is nearby to Las Mercedes that's called Guayabo de Turrialba, and it's spelled I can't type and talk at the same time. You all know this. I guess I should hit an enter in there. Guayabo de Turrialba. No, it's not my boomer status. It's my dyslexia. My brain wants to type the sounds that I'm making, not necessarily the letters that go with it. So Guayabo de Turrialba. Turrialba. There we go. I gotta roll the R, and I have to make myself do that because that's not normally a sound that I make. But this is another larger city that's part of this Costa Rican culture here. It's actually going to end up being a lot larger. You're going to see a lot more stonework being done in this city here. This is sort of the main walkway of the city, and you see that we've got, if if you're looking at this now, you might go, hey, they built a big mound and they built a wall around the outside of it. That's not necessarily what's going on here. These are buildings where they've excavated the outside of the building and they've just left the fill dirt inside of it as a way to try to preserve the material. Guayabo is actually really, really under excavated. There's a lot of this place that could do with some really good work. Part of the issue with both of these sites in Costa Rica is that they're pretty far into the jungle. This one's open for tourists. You can go to Guayabo if you want to. It's just hard to get to, and a lot of people don't want to go up there. And when you start doing stuff in Costa Rica, this is to Costa Rica's credit. So I'm going to say this, and I don't want you to think that I'm speaking ill of Costa Rica. Costa Rica has some of the strictest rules when it comes to doing anything in nature. So if there's an area that has natural growth on it, there is a lot of regulation that goes into that. But that's because Costa Rica recognizes the value of its natural resources, things like its rainforests and its trees and its jungles and its natural habitat. And they preserve that really well. So if you're going to go to the city and say, hey, we're going to excavate the city, but to do that, we're going to need to clear, probably 30-ish acres of woodland habitat. That's not something that's going to be done just on a whim. And also, there's not a lot of interest in Costa Rican archaeology. How are the roads leading there? That's a great question. I don't know the answer to it. Let's see if we can see them from the sky. Guayabo de Turrialba. What's up, Reethy? It's good to see you. Okay, so here's the modern city, which is not a very big modern city. It's got some bus stops in it, though. Check that out. And the actual archaeological site. Ooh, crud, I lost it. Oh, it's up here in the... Yeah. That looks like it's probably a dirt road. I don't know. That looks paved. There is no way we've got... Yeah, I didn't think we would have... I didn't think that we would get the satellite... Or not the satellite, the street view. So you can see the site here, though. There are a lot of buildings that are outlined, and you can tell where the buildings were, but they haven't been excavated. And the site itself covers basically this whole ridge that runs... Let me zoom on out. This whole ridge right here is the city site. So all of this area has potential for excavation, and they've only cleared this little strip right here of it. But it looks like the roads aren't actually that bad. I mean, that's a paved road. That's a 2-lane paved road. So I'm going to say that the roads are fairly decent getting there. It'd be a cool place to go see. I'd love to go to Costa Rica. It has a beautiful set of natural habitats for birds and all kinds of cool stuff that, hope I didn't come at you in a weird way. Oh, no. Oh, no, you're talking to DCI Banks. Okay. I was like, no. Yes, we're in the Americas. We'll talk about Peru, and we'll talk about Bolivia, the areas that the Inca lived in. But we are about 600 years before the Inca really show up. Well, not 600 years. We're in the 800s, so 900. About 450-ish years before they show up. I'm bad at math. you don't really start seeing the Inca until the 1300s. I'd love to go to Costa Rica. Is there any place you wouldn't love to go? No. I would love to go to a lot of places. I have been to I've been to areas that are adjacent to active war zones. If I could get guarantees of safety, active war zones wouldn't even be that big of a deal. I just love travel. How do you even start excavating a place? Just dig until you hear something crack? Oh no, Vipers, it's a big involved process, especially if you're doing something that's covered in in growth like that. You've got to go in and clear you go in and you clear cut the place. And in the process of doing that, you have to start laying out your grids because you want to know where you're going to dig, and you're typically going to dig in a couple of different styles. The traditional way of exploratory digging is just called a trench, where you start at one end and you dig a trench that might be 2-4 meters wide, something like that. So you're going to get a square that's probably a meter by a meter. So your trench might be 2 or 3 meters wide, and then maybe 30 or 40 meters long. And you just position that trench where you think the most likely place for something cool to have been. But sometimes if it's a place that hasn't been excavated at all, you just sort of pick the highest elevated area, because the highest elevated areas are the ones that are most likely to have been habitated. And you just start digging, and you've got to be really slow and deliberate here when you do this. You in a place like Costa Rica, you'd have a pretty thick root system that you'd have to break through, because the trees and the plants all have very deep and thick roots to hold them into the soil that gets so much water in it. So you're going to have to get through the root layer, but you do things methodically over time, very, very, very slowly. So you'd get through your root layer and you get down to your topsoil, and you just start digging your square. And when you get the dirt out of it, no dirt goes unsifted. You're going to take all of your dirt out of your square, maybe 5-10 centimeters, not 10 centimeters, maybe 4 or 5 centimeters at a time, until you hit stuff. And then when you hit stuff, you've got to slow down, and you're removing millimeters of dirt at a time, until you figure out what you've got. So it's a pretty intense process when it comes to patience. A lot of people think you go out with a shovel and you start digging up stuff and you turn up, some sort of fanciful artifact, and that's the way that it goes. That's not the way that it goes. A lot of archaeology is this, where you've taken fill dirt and you've put it in a bucket, and the bucket has gone over to a sifter, and the sifter, you dump the dirt into the sifter, and depending on what sort of soil you have, you're going to be sifting a lot. If it's got pebbles and rocks and stuff in it, you're going to have a constant supply of water, like a water hose or some bucket brigades, because you're going to have to consistently wash to shake everything out. And then you've got to go through all of it to see if you've got small pieces of pottery, maybe pieces of bone, any sort of artifact in there, or if it's all just pebbles, you chuck the pebbles, and then you do another bucket full, and you do that all day. All day. And it's not always the most fun thing to do, right? Sifting. You grew up going to northern New Mexico and examining the Aztec ruins. Okay. For a second there, I was like, there aren't Aztecs in New Mexico. But then I realized that it's because America names stuff stupidly. But yeah. The Aztec National Monument. I know what you're talking about. So the kiva there is actually really interesting. Kiva is again one of these sort of big, like dug into the ground kind of pit dwelling places, and it's pretty cool. Pretty cool. I've never been there, but I'd love to go. Ground penetrating radar. Yeah, so that's a new thing that has saved a lot of people time, because now you can go drag your ground penetrating radar over stuff and you can tell where walls and pockets of things are. But the thing with ground penetrating radar is that it misses a lot of small things. If it's not metallic or very, very dense, you're not going to get a lot of good report from that. So if it's something like pottery or something like an item wrapped in a rag or something like that, you're not necessarily going to get good bounce back from the radar. LiDAR. Yeah, LiDAR is being used a lot. It really has been. It really has been. Put Shane's passport through the shredder. Oh no. Oh no. Need to build a 3D model of where each and every object is found. So Frank, big time. That's another thing that archaeology has been doing a lot lately, especially with modern photographic technology and with drones. Another thing that people have been doing is you geosync your location with latitude and longitude, and you get your drone to hover over, and it's taking these pictures that are geosynced with your squares. And you can go back to the lab and stitch all of these photos together, and you can have literally a three-dimensional-ish look zone of your excavation, and you can point out exactly where things are that you found, and that's pretty helpful. What's up, Dame Karen? Good to see you. Time Team was one of my favorite shows as a kid. There we go, right? There's artifacts in our hills, indeed. Yeah, get the intern. Hey, that's what the interns do. Run the sifter, right? How do you perceive modern privilege compared to the workers who busted their entire lives on the field of a nobleman who did the arts? Let me read that again. How do I perceive modern privilege compared to the workers who busted their entire lives on the field and the noble? Oh, so is the privilege gap wider today than it was back then? I don't think it is. I just think that what we use to measure privilege has shifted. Instead of looking specifically here at stuff like physical labor as a way to gauge the privilege gap, I think we have to substitute economic capacity or socioeconomic status as the new medium of privilege exchange, instead of physical labor versus what we might call leisure time, because the average person today has typically more leisure time than somebody back in the medieval period would have. But we also typically don't do nearly as much labor as they do. So physical labor is sort of the thing, whereas today the buying power or the ability to participate in economic means is the medium of exchange. First, you get funding from the BBC. Second, you do aerial topography scans. Third, you do this in Europe where there are artifacts literally anywhere. Yeah, right? Also, you call yourself the Time Team, right? What's up, Noger? I have to think that most billionaires just screw around. Well, see, that's the thing, because they share the same social position as people that were medieval lords back in the day. The difference is just that the thing that separates them from the peasants is not purely just physical labor. Now it's socioeconomic buying power. They worked their entire lives because the work probably killed them. That's fair. Let me show you this, and we'll try to get ourselves back on task here. Here's a cool petroglyph. And this is from Guayabo, and it's a big old rock that's got a lizard on it. Pretty cool. I thought it was neat. You coughed one of those up. Interesting. That's... I hope not. It is a happy lizard. He's got a big smile on his face. He's happy to be here. Green Herring, I don't think I said hello to you, but hello, Green Herring. I've been a poor host and have not greeted my friends. All right, let's move on a little bit to a city called Tula, and specifically a group of people called the Tol-Tec. The Tol-Tec. When we're talking about what's going on here in our more developed region of Mexico / Central America, the city of Tula is going to be growing during this period. And Tula is going to be what becomes the center of the Tol-Tec Empire. And the Tol-Tecs are going to be one of the more powerful groups of people that we're going to see for about the next 200 or so, 250-ish or so years in this region. They're going to be really powerful. Now, Tula eventually, sorry, I guess I should start at the beginning. Tula starts off as a city that today we refer to as Tula Chico, or Small Tula. And they lived there for a while. It was a village, then it turned into a town, then it turned into a city. There are some fairly sizable buildings that they put together. This is one of the buildings at Tula Chico. It's just sort of a flat-topped building that has civic purposes, probably. But, I mean, you can tell it's got a lot of work that went into it. So it's not like nobody's living here or not building cool stuff. But around 850, they're going to shift sites and go a little bit south around a corner of a big mountain to a new site that's going to be referred to as Tula Grande, or Big Tula. And this is when the population is really going to start to rise. And before we know it, Tula is going to be forming a pretty big trade network. Now, part of the reason why Tula is able to do this, and the Tol-Tec people who live there are going to be able to expand so broadly, is because of the big power vacuum that has opened up since the fall of Teotihuacan, which is something that we talked about in this region in the last couple of streams. So Teotihuacan was this big trading power that had this big empire, and when they fall apart, nobody is really forming that mechanism in the region anymore. And there was a lot of trade moving around, and there were a lot of luxury goods being exchanged. So the Toltecs had adobes, and today we have Adobe Tech Toll. They didn't actually build anything out of Adobe, but I appreciate the attempt at spinning the pun. I'll take it. But and this is, again, one of the problems with talking about this. It's not really a problem, but one of the issues that we run into when we discuss this particular century is that we're going to see a lot of stuff starting to happen. And we're not necessarily going to see the fruits of that until later streams. There's a lot of debate about who exactly the people of Tula were, or who the Toltec people were originally. Some people say that they were leftovers from the Maya. Some people say that they were leftovers from Teotihuacan. Some other people say that they are a new people group that sort of grew out of this area of time. But the idea here gets really confused by the fact that the Aztec, who were a later group of people, wrote a whole bunch of mythology that's going to sort of muddy the waters on who the Toltec actually were, because according to the Aztec, the Toltec played this key role in the development of Aztec culture, and we're going to have all this really interesting projection back through time where The Aztecs are going to attribute a lot of things to the Tol-Tec based on what's left of the Tol-Tecs by the time that the Aztecs show up. And some of this stuff actually does appear to be fairly accurate, but other parts of it might be mythological. And then we're stuck with this, well, we have a primary source, but we know that it's not necessarily completely reliable. And then we have archaeological evidence that is not complete because, unfortunately, Toltecs of the larger Mesoamerican cultures are one of the least appreciated. We have a lot of research on the Maya, a lot of research on the Aztec, but the Toltec, who sort of bridge the gap between these two groups, don't really get a lot of love. And it's kind of unfortunate. This is sort of a theme, again, of Mesoamerican archaeology. The really sexy stuff is over in the Mediterranean world or in Europe, where a lot of people are going to dump money, and a lot of people don't really care very much about excavating Mesoamerican cities. I think it would be amazing, but you know how I am, right? How am I hanging in there tonight? Barely. I think that's the correct answer. Where adobe's not made from adobe brick. Tula is made out of rock. If we go back to our image here, these are rocks. So adobe is a clay, and these are rocks. That's what you get for trusting Wikipedia. Well, you might have been looking at Tula Chico, and there are some buildings in Tula Chico that are part of the older region that are built out of adobe. But it's, I mean, if you look at Tula Grande, So this up here is Tula Chico. And the larger site is down here. This is Tula Grande. And, I mean, you can tell that... Ooh, look. I'm about to spoil everything that's going to happen next time around. This isn't adobe. This is all rock stuff. This is, of course, later. A bunch of these buildings would not have been there during the 9th century. Like this big pyramid would probably not have been there during the 9th century. Right. This is a big old stone city. I'd love to go to Tula. This would be really friggin' cool. But you can see how big these things are. It's pretty neat. Found the paragraph that led me astray. Most of Tula was set up in a grid plan. The buildings were made of stone with an adobe finish. Ah, yes. So the good old plaster technique, right? So you make the building out of stone, and then you plaster it so that you can paint on it, right? I've got this picture too. Check this out. These are really cool warrior pillars. These big, super life size, way larger than life size stone pillars that are designed to look like Toltec warriors or people. They're referred to specifically as warriors, but these are really cool. These are on top of one of the pyramids at... this is in Mexico. The city's name is Tula. And if you want to go back over here specifically, it is... right there. It's not too terribly far from Teotihuacan. Let's actually get directions, and we'll go from Tula to Teotihuacan. and we'll see how long it takes to get there. Yeah, it's not very far. About an hour's drive, 107 kilometers. That's pretty cool. Yeah, it's pretty close. Yeah, and see, that one of the reasons why a lot of people want to attribute the Toltec people being uh, sort of antecessors of the the people from Teotihuacan is because of the visual similarity. Because a lot of this stuff, they have fantastic posture. Exactly, exactly. Um, so if when you were at Teotihuacan, you were about an hour away from Tula, which is a little bit younger. It's about 200 years younger. So the height of Teotihuacan is in the that's 700s ish period, and then they kind of fall off, and then we get Tula here at about 850 when the Tula Grande zone is going to start really producing a lot of stuff. All right, now we mentioned the Maya, or I mentioned the Maya, and there is a really, really big shift in the Maya world around this time period. A lot of the big cities, so Teotihuacan was mostly abandoned by the time that that Tula Grande would have been established. Teotihuacan would have been really big around the same time that Tula Chico was turning into a city, but Teotihuacan is going to be gone by the time that Tula Grande becomes a big powerhouse. And this actually goes further into the idea that Teotihuacan collapsed and a lot of people went to Tula Chico and it got too crowded, so then they had to go to a new site and made Tula Grande, which is just, again, right around the corner, and build this really big new city because of all this influx of people. So there's a good case to be made there. I don't know if we can prove it because we don't have good enough sources. But speaking of cities that are going to be abandoned around this time, a lot of the big Maya cities that we have been talking about for centuries are going to really get on hard times. So we've been talking about Tikal and Calakmul for about 250 to 300 years as being these really big Maya cities. Other cities like Copan, they're going to start falling into disrepair and abandoned. And the Maya world is going to move from this region down in here, which is modern day Guatemala and Honduras, the Petén Basin, and they're going to start moving up into the Yucatan. And if you go on a cruise to Mexico and you stop to see Maya ruins, these are the cities that you're probably going to go to see. Most notably, the biggest one is Chichen Itza. Yep, you got it. Chichen Itza becomes a really, really big deal during this period of time. They're going to start building. They had been a city for a while, and they had been a fairly sizable city for a while. But during this time, you're going to stop seeing monumental structures and really large buildings being built at places like Tikal or Calakmul, and you're going to see monumental architecture start showing up here at Chichen Itza, which we can look at from the sky. And it's ridiculously large and pretty friggin' cool. Chicken pizza. Yep. +2 culture and +1 production. Yeah. So this is Chichen Itza. It's a very, very, very large site. And they have a lot of this stuff put into Google Street View. So this particular pyramid was on Days of Our Lives back in the 2000s. No, not back in the 90s, because my grandmother watched that religiously, and I had to endure watching that with her when I was being babysat. But you've got lots of big monumental structures here at Chichen Itza. It's going to be sort of the new center of the Maya world. Not necessarily the center geographically speaking, but it's definitely going to be one of the most important cultural cities and the biggest trade city in the area. Chichen Itza becomes really, really, really big. Now, there are other cities that you might not have ever heard of. A city like Mayapan, which is a pretty cool place. I've got an image here across the side at Mayapan. So a pretty cool city that you can go visit if you want to. Not nearly as touristy as Chichen Itza, but also a city that became very popular during this period of time. And it was in a trade group with Chichen Itza, another city called Uxmal. Again, this is a shift to the Yucatan Peninsula. And another thing that this is sort of signifying here that's not really something that we've talked about a lot, but there is beginning to be increasing trade in the Caribbean islands. So there had been people in the Caribbean islands for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. But they're starting to build more boats, and they're starting to sort of get more involved in this larger world here. You're going to start seeing some larger villages that are going to start popping up, and we'll talk more about the Caribbean the next time that we come around, like the Kalina people and stuff like that. But we're actually going a lot longer than I had thought because I love this stuff, and I don't think that the Americas get enough love when it comes to historical stuff. Did jaguars, eagles, etc. have religious? Yeah, sure. You see those names and those words pop up a lot in people's names, right? Or I said that badly. Those elements like jaguar, eagle, pop up a lot in people's names, and they're tied both to animism, the spirit of the animal, but a lot of those are also tied specifically to individual gods, right? So, especially birds are going to be attributed to different types of deities, but especially like the winged serpent, which is a sort of pan-Mesoamerican deity that shows up a lot in a lot of different mythologies. But yeah, stuff like jaguars and monkeys and things like that all have mythological elements that are roughly equitable to people like, Aesop. You have Aesop's fables where the animals kind of act certain ways. They're caricatures, they're stereotypes based on the traits of the animal. But you see some of that stuff too in Mesoamerican culture. Winged serpent, proof that dragons were real. Clearly, I'm with you right there, Green Herring. I'm with you. Dragons are confirmed real. Confirmed. What's going on down here in South America, though? What's their estimate population of these cities at their peak? The biggest ones, like Chichen Itza, during their peak, might have between 75,000 people, maybe 100,000 people in the region. Tula wasn't quite as big, maybe at its peak, maybe like 60,000 people. But there's a fair amount of there's a fair amount of people there. Name 2 countries with dragons on their national flag. Wales has a dragon on its national flag. I want to say... Nope, Serbia's got the double eagle, the old Byzantine double eagle, which isn't actually Byzantine. It's actually Sumerian. Dragon on their national flag. I'm bad at flags, by the way. That's sort of one of my Achilles heels. Um, dragon. I know Mexico has a snake, but that doesn't count as a dragon. It has an eagle clutching a snake. I'm just trying to go through like all of the countries and look at their flags in my head. No, because that's not Nepal. Is it Bhutan? Does Bhutan have one? Poland. Okay. I honestly can't picture Poland's flag in my head. Poland can't... No. Poland's flag is just red and white. Yeah, it's just like red and white. Maddie, we already did that already. Yeah. Yeah, so like if we... Nope. Yeah, so this is the flag of Poland. It's just a red and white stripe. National flag with dragon. Yeah, Bhutan. See? Bhutan. I was right. Y'all trying to get me all twisted. I knew Bhutan's had a dragon on it. What are the cool balls? Okay, here's what I'm going to do. Your definition was national flag. The national flag of Poland. That is the national flag of Poland. That is not a dragon. That is an eagle. There is no dragon. That's an eagle. There's a knight. The flag of Lower Silesia. Okay. I don't see a dragon anywhere on here. Let's do the old Control F. The word dragon does not appear in the Wikipedia article for Poland. Let's look up Wawel, or I guess that's Wawel dragon. It's a creature of Polish folklore. I'm Googling Wawel dragon flag. And I'm not seeing anything. Let's go Polish flag. Flang. Polish flag dragon. That's the dragon? Like we're saying that's the dragon? That's an eagle. Eagle. Yeah, see, this even says the story behind the Polish eagle. Poland's mythical founder, Lech. he stumbled upon a large nest containing a majestic white eagle with 2 eaglets. Anyway, there we go. Maybe the Polish flag is a dragon. Ah, there we go. There we go. To be fair, I was trying to draw a dragon, and the Polish PM said, "Oh, what a wonderful eagle." And he said, "Yes, that's right." The Poles are considered... yes, the Poles are originally going to be traced back to Slavic peoples. We actually talked about that 3-4 weeks ago, something like that. Okay, so I feel like I might have actually offended you by defending my case so fervently. If that was taken in any way but like, I don't think that's a dragon. Please don't feel like I was coming at you, my friend. Flags aren't my thing, but I don't think that's a dragon. I think it's an eagle. I knew that Bhutan had one, though. Or actually, I wasn't certain, but I was pretty sure that Bhutan had a dragon on it. I knew Wales. Like, that was, like, right off the top of my head. And then I had to think about it, because I knew that there was another one. I don't know, maybe Malta? I don't know what Malta's flag looks like. Now we're just going to play flag roulette. Isn't that what... Malta has a little cross on it. It's got a guy riding a horse, and it says, "For gallantry." Malta would be a cool place to go. Yeah, that's right. That is a King George Cross, because that's like the story that the British nobility gave everybody on Malta the King George's Cross because they supported their side during the war, and then they just stuck it on the flag. Mexico does not have a dragon. Mexico has an eagle with a snake. Yep. All right. South America, and then we got to go. Good gracious. I didn't think that I'd be streaming this long. I literally planned about a quarter less material so that I didn't have to be on all the time. I'm tired. No. It's fine. It's fine. South America, what's going on down here? Well, we've got a group of people that are going to show up, and they're going to be really important later on. They're called the Musica people. And they're down here in the mountains of Colombia. And they're going to start right around the region where some of the other people that we talked about last time around are going to be. Herrera people are going to be a little bit before them. But right down in this region, you're going to find the Musica population. And they're going to start growing in size and population. And their cities are going to start getting a little bit bigger. And during the next century, when we come back around to talk about them, they're going to be huge. And they actually are going to be a civilization that carries all the way through until Europeans show up. And there are still people today that consider themselves part of the Musica ethnic group. But that's going to be pretty cool. And we'll talk about them a lot more in the future. Now, getting down here to our other groups, if you've been with us in the past when we've talked about the Americas, you'll know that there are two fairly large or kingdoms, I guess is the right way of calling them, that are down here in the Atlantic, or sorry, that's the Pacific seaboard. I'm losing my brain. We have the Wari and we have the Tiwanaku. And so the Wari up here in the north, and they're going to basically run from what is by the border today with Ecuador and down the Pacific coastline to right about here. And Tiwanaku is going to pick up, and they're going to be mostly around Lake Titicaca in Bolivia, and then down into what is modern day Chile. The population of this, how not to get gaslit by your students. If you were in a room with me and I could see your face and I could hear you talking, it would be a lot easier. It's way easy to trick somebody when all I'm getting is text and no context, right? I'm a fairly high context individual. I like to see what you're saying and how you're saying it with. Okay, so if you're screwing with me, you succeeded in screwing with me pretty well. There we go. I'm pretty sure it's a dragon on Mexico's flag. You're just I am prejudiced against dragons. So maybe dragons evolved into eagles, and eagles are dragons, like birds or dinosaurs, right? Okay. I mean, I still love you. There used to be a dragon that lived under Krakow. Well, that's cool. I guess it'd be Krakow, right? Yeah, exactly. Birds or dinosaurs. I knew somebody who probably had Danny's. Dinosaurs or skunks. Now that's a hypothesis that we'd have to have to test. Dragons are just pre-evolved hippogriffs. Maybe so. Maybe so. Anyway, the Wari up here, they're cool and they're big and they're doing their thing. Except some of their sites are falling apart during this period of time, and the Wari are, I mean, they're still going to be going okay. They've got a little bit of gas left in the tank, but some of their big cities are going to start being abandoned. And one of their sites, like this guy, this is a site called Piquiacta. It's got this really cool street that runs down the middle of it, but Piquiacta is going to pretty much be abandoned around this time period. Do we know why? Do we know why that the cities are being abandoned? If a lot of this has to do with the population spreading out in South America. One of the things that's happening, generally speaking, in South America is that people are not abandoning the idea of living in cities, but it does seem like they kind of got to a point where they go, okay, there's just too many people in this city. And it's okay to be in a city, but we need to maybe be in a smaller city a little bit further away. And you do see the population sort of thinning out. And in areas that had been previously very tightly populated and like really high density of population, you start seeing people move out. And this is especially true of our people down here in Tiwanaku, because their empire is actually going to be still running colonies. They started doing this in the last century in the 700s, but Tiwanaku's colonies are going to start doing colonies in the 800s, especially down here in Chile, which is, again, here just right along the Pacific coastline. You're going to start seeing a big population of people down here that are kind of going out to form new cities. So there's a lot of speculation as to, was this driven by something like they grew too fast and then they realized that they couldn't support the population through food, or did they have some sort of event where they had a pandemic and it killed a whole bunch of people? That kind of stuff. Those are always common, but I do think it's just as potentially valid to say maybe people just didn't want to be in a gigantic city. Maybe they liked kind of a medium-sized city. Maybe the population just got too big, and socially it was hard to make their particular social arrangements work. We're still not completely clear on how all of the ins and the outs of the politics of these cities ran either. That could be another potential issue. Their political structure worked well on a certain population level, but when it got outside of a certain population level, it started breaking down. So people were like, maybe we need to go do something else. Don't worry, be Hopi. That's great. As an engineer, it always blows my mind how these ancient people can keep straight long lines in their structures. Oh yeah, absolutely, Tanker, absolutely. These people are brilliant, and that's one of the things that I really like to focus on when I talk about history. Is let's remember that human beings have the same capacity for intelligence as long as we've been human beings. The people of the ancient world are just as capable of being smart as we are. We just sort of get this false sense of intelligence because we have shinier and fancier tools than they did. But they do a lot of stuff that we can't do now. If you asked me to go outside and build a building that's got perfectly square corners, I couldn't do it. I wouldn't even know where to begin to do that. So, what's up, Girl Forest? You're late to the stream, but you love this topic. Awesome. Awesome. People like Shane would move out of the city, and then people like me would follow. I just looked at the flag of Malta. There's not a dragon on the flag of Malta. To answer your question about who has dragons, Wales, Bhutan, and Malta. Are we messing with Shane again with the Malta thing? Because I just looked that up. I just looked up the flag of Malta, and it doesn't have a dragon on it. Please don't mess with me. I'm so tired. I'm going to go Malta, no dragon confirmed. And I'm just going to stick with that even if I'm shown evidence to counter. So that's the plan. There's a dragon. Look at the George cross under the feet of the horse. Oh, is it George, St. George? Is he crushing the dragon? Do I have to zoom in like super duper tight? Oh yeah, there it is. Okay. It's actually the St. George. Yeah, okay. Okay, I lose. I lose. Yeah, the dragon is very small. Gotcha. I was wrong, even though I said that I wouldn't admit that. I was wrong. I was challenged to name too, Frank. Thank you. That's great. I have a hard time admitting, or I have a hard time not correcting myself when I'm doing academic stuff and I'm proven wrong. I put a lot of stock in saying that I'm wrong academically when I'm wrong. Because it's important for academics to admit when they're wrong. And I think that's a really important thing to do. So I always try to be a good example there. Alrighty. I think we're about to go do a raid though, because that's all for me. That's all that I had planned. Now, if anybody has questions about stuff, or if anybody has any sort of additional materials that they might want to incorporate or ask about or something of that nature, go for it. But it's about time for us to go do the raidy raid. I'm not much of a liar at all. Are there going to be viewer choice votes soon? Yes. Tuesday. Assuming I don't lose my mind between now and then, we're going to have a viewer request stream on Darwin. And then we're going to have a vote at the end of that stream on whatever the next viewer request thing would be. So, can I talk to your master's thesis supervisor about the whole wrong issue? He needs explaining. I mean, I'd be happy to. I don't know if they're going to give any credence to me. Did I already go over Nazca lines? Yeah, we've talked about the Nazca lines before. And we've got VODs of that back in previous periods. So You can roll back and check out the VODs on that. We have not talked about Sacsayhuaman walls, though. We have not talked about them. I think people in general life hide when they're wrong as often as possible. We find it asserting it immediately. Yeah, I think that's a good general thing. When you know that you're wrong, say you're wrong. And I think it's just good practice. I think there's so much stigma about being wrong, especially when it's something that's not necessarily... Nobody was going to die because I couldn't see the tiny little dragon on the Malta flag, right? But it sets a precedent where being wrong gets destigmatized in a certain way. Now, there are wrongs that are bad, right? Like, I'm going to go murder somebody. That's wrong, and you shouldn't be wrong like that. But being factually inaccurate in situations where the stakes are not particularly high, I mean, just do your thing, right? Just say that you're wrong. It's okay. Yeah, hey, master's thesis supervisor, this guy on the internet says you're wrong. Exactly. And see, DCI owned it. Right? Charles Darwin, yes, Charles Darwin. I wouldn't know, I've never been wrong. We won't argue on stream. Being wrong isn't the end of the world. You can always be a GOP politician. Or the prime minister. Right? Touche. Okay. I think we're going to go do a raid. And I don't know where we're going to go do a raid. Well, I was going to go raid this person, but they're on a break. Let's do something weird. We haven't done this in forever. Let's just go find a random stream to raid. I found a lot of good streams just by randomly raiding people. That's how I found Aristotle. Let's see who's streaming with the term history. Me. I'm actually right now on Twitch the largest stream with the flag history. So look at me. Look at me. Of course, my 27 viewers is, I think you all are amazing, but it's not necessarily the largest of the large. Let's see who's running under educational. See, that's the thing, like... Educational gets such a broad topic. Ooh, homozygotes. She is. We just rated her last week though. Or a week before last or something like that. Okay, so this guy is apparently talking about COVID and Parkinson's, and he claims to be a scientist and a biologist. So we're gonna go raid, and I have no idea what's going on. I've had other people say that I should raid this channel before, and I've just never done it, but we're going to go do it, and we'll say hi, and we'll bring friends, and we'll shout adventure. So homozygote is a good guy. there we go. So we've got endorsers in the stream from people that I trust. So we're going to go raid Homozygote. Yell adventure when we get there and throw adventure hats. I'm actually not going to be able to chat because I don't have a verified account. So if you have a verified account, feel free to share with Homozygote exactly what we were doing.
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus! Grathar with the snipe right at the end.
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus!
All right. Grathar, thank you so much for that subscription. It's always good to see you, my friend. I hope that you're doing well. But until next time, take it easy. See you around. Next time I'll definitely be on is Tuesday, assuming that my brain doesn't fry out and everything goes okay. But until then, take it easy.